Hello and welcome back to another episode of Showcase. It's been about a week or so since the launch of Nintendo's newest console, the Nintendo Switch, and being the lifelong Nintendo fan I am, I of course picked one up. Now there's been a lot of debate about the Switch's launch lineup and whether or not it's good, but that's not what I'm going to focus on here. I'm just here to talk about the games that I bought around the Switch's launch. And who knows, maybe it'll help you out if you bought a Switch or you're thinking about buying one and you're looking for some games to get with it. Let's just burn through the easy ones right now. First, the big game, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I'm not going to touch too heavily on this one, mainly because I think if you're clicking on this video, you're in one of two camps when it comes to this game. You're either already playing it and you don't need me to tell you how good it is, which, spoiler, yes, I'm going to tell you that it's very, very good, or you're going to play it eventually and you don't want it spoiled. That's been a huge thing over the internet since even before the Switch came out, is that nobody wants spoilers for Breath of the Wild and nobody wants to give them. Nobody wants to spoil it for anybody, and I'm certainly not going to do that. So I only recorded a little bit of just random gameplay footage, and I'm just going to give a general opinion on the game. It's really, really good. Like, one of the best Zelda games ever. It's not tops my favorites. I've seen a lot of people that have said that it's their favorite, or like it's their new favorite, or it's getting close to their favorite. I wouldn't quite put it that high. I still think both Link to the Past and Link Between Worlds are better games. But it is really, really good. It's probably right below those, actually. It focuses a lot on exploration and discovery, to the point where, past the tutorial, which is really, like, it's kind of necessary, honestly, to really get you into the game. But past the tutorial, the game just kind of throws you into Hyrule, and it's like, alright, go do shit. It doesn't really tell you anything. It's very, like, old school in that sense, in that you don't get any real direction. You get, like, here are the 4 major dungeons all on your map, but you can do them in whatever order you want, or you can just go do random side quests or just screw around and catch fish. But I like that, and it has a big sense of discovery. It's been now, like I said, a good amount of time since it came out, and people are still discovering new shit. I'm seeing stuff in the game that I've never even heard about, let alone seen. There are areas in the game I haven't seen yet. I haven't beaten it, so there are areas in the main story I haven't seen yet. I know there's, like, snowy mountains, and I've only been on a couple of those, and there's 2 areas for the dungeons that I haven't been anywhere near. So, and I've put a lot of time into the game already. I've put probably about 10 or 15 hours into it, and I still have barely seen, like, anything. But Breath of the Wild is really, really good. I think anybody who is buying a Switch is probably getting this, regardless of whether or not they give a damn about Zelda. It's kind of the killer app right now, or at least just the hot seller. And it's good. It's really, really good. Shovel Knight is a game that I was going to review way back when it originally came out, and I actually recorded a lot of the footage and even wrote most of the script. But I didn't like the script very much, so I never finished the script, nor did I ever rewrite it, because by the time I got around to when I would have been able to do that, the game wasn't really, nobody was really talking about it, and so I felt like it was kind of not necessary at that point. But now that it's a launch title for the Switch, I have a chance to talk about it. Shovel Knight, just right off the bat, base game is, if you like retro games, Shovel Knight is basically a love letter to old NES games. Not a new statement, but it takes elements from, if I remember how it was pitched, it's Mega Man, Castlevania, Zelda 2, and no matter how many times they say this is not the case, I'm going to continue to say it, DuckTales. It has DuckTales elements. But Shovel Knight, again, if you like retro games, you probably have already played it. But it's definitely worth getting on the Switch, I think, especially if you have not bought the DLCs that have come out, Plague of Shadows and Spectre of Torment. Both of those are on the Switch version. If you get the Treasure Trove, I think it's called, it just comes with everything, and it's like $25. They have Spectre of Torment standalone for $10, and I think Plague of Shadows was also $10, assuming you didn't already own the game. If you already own the game, then it's a free update, if I recall correctly. But if you didn't own the game, you can buy them separately, and they're $10 each. The game itself, I think was also $10, $10 or $15. So getting about $30 worth of content for, I think, $25 is how much Treasure Trove is. It's not a huge deal, but it's a good deal. And $25 for 3 full-length, like the Plague Knight and the Plague Knight and the Spectre Knight stories. They're not minor couple level things. They are full-on separate games. That's why they can sell them for $10 and it still be a full package. It's almost worth it. It'd almost be worth it for the regular game Shovel of Hope, which is the name they've given it, and Spectre of Torment. Plague of Shadows is kind of its own, like, it's kind of a bonus. Spectre of Torment might actually be better than the main game, but every campaign is worth playing. They're all great. Spectre of Torment, again, is probably my favorite. It's a weird one, though, because in some cases it's easier than the regular Shovel Knight, but it's also kind of harder. The level designs themselves are harder. However, enemy and boss encounters, I think, are a lot easier because of the dash slash. I always have trouble saying that. It makes the whole thing a lot easier because you can rocket up into the sky, and just the dragon boss that shows up in the first stage, I can't remember if I recorded footage of it or not. If I have, it's showing up, but with that boss, you can just dash slash over and over and over again and avoid basically every attack he does. But even then, some of the bosses are difficult even with that. The final boss especially was, or not the second to last boss. The final boss was oddly easy, but really, really cool. But the second to last boss was fairly difficult. A lot of the platforming involves wall running and climbing up ledges, which is really, really cool. I love that. There's even an entire climbing minigame, which is frustrating. I posted about it on Twitter, but it's still really, really fun. So yeah, Shovel Knight is another great game to buy for the Switch if you either haven't played it yet or you've only played the base game, because that $25 is worth it for even just those 2 DLCs. Super Bomberman R is one that not really anybody talked about, like when the Switch was coming out, mainly because Zelda. But I've been a Bomberman fan for as long as I can remember. One of the games I played a lot when I was a kid, when I had my Super Nintendo, was, I think, Super Bomberman 2. It was one of the Super Bomberman games. I cannot for the life of me remember which one, but having played through most of them, I'm pretty sure it's 2, just because the scenery in that one is the most, like, it's the one that I actually recognize. It seems familiar to me. That's not important. I've been playing Bomberman for a really long time, and when they announced that there was going to be a new Bomberman game for the Switch, that was like, already, alright, I'm getting that with Breath of the Wild, and I did. I pre-ordered it, and for a little bit, like, I played it for hours, genuine hours when I started it. I went for, I think, 4 or 5, maybe even 6 hours while playing, and I don't do that with games very often anymore. But with Bomberman, I played that game multiple days in a row for just upwards of 4 hours. It's so much fun. It can be really, really hard sometimes, just mainly in the bosses, because I think the bosses are probably the weakest part of the game. The encounters with the different Bombermen are generally kind of terrible. They're just spamming bombs, I feel, most of the time until you win. The bosses that follow, that are actual boss fights, save for the second one, are really good. The second one is awful because the boss takes up so much of the screen, and because the game is, for some reason, angled diagonally, whereas all the other Bomberman games you're seeing from a top-down perspective with a slight angle upwards, maybe. This one is you're seeing from top-down, and it's angled diagonally, and it makes it so that you can't always see exactly what you're doing, and especially on the second boss, the second boss is just bad, because you'll run right into him without even realizing it, because you can't see where you are. But that generally, I think the bosses, save for the Bomberman fights themselves, are pretty good. The final boss especially is a lot of fun, even though I'm terrible at it, and it could be frustrating. But it was usually pretty fun. I haven't played the online modes yet. Apparently there is some input lag when it comes to the online, which makes it a little bit harder. than it should be, but I haven't played it, so I can't say for sure. However, just from the single-player mode, it's really fun. The dialogue is especially hilarious. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon. It's not like great technically dialogue. A lot of the characters are one-note cliches. Like there's a tired guy, and there's the really happy-go-lucky guy. The white Bomberman is the main character. Black is the cool guy. You know, they're very one-note generic characters, but it doesn't take itself super seriously. It's hilarious. Specifically, I want to mention the voice acting is delightfully over the top. The most notable of which, for me, being the voice of White Bomber Peter Von Gom, who I know and other Kamen Rider fans will know as the voice of Kamen Rider Necrom's Mega U-Loader in Kamen Rider Ghost. However, more famously in the video game circle, you probably know him as Flame High on Art in Mega Man X7.
Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground! Burn to the ground!
Yes, him. I really like his performance for Bomberman. I don't know why, because it's not particularly an interesting voice, but his delivery, it's just so much fun. The cutscenes are almost the highlight of the game. You could string them together just into this movie. I think they might actually be about as long as a Saturday morning cartoon episode, maybe 25 minutes or so. I don't know for sure. But they're a hoot. They're great. I love them. And all the voice acting is generally pretty good. It's a little stilted sometimes. The delivery can be weird, but it works. It's fun. Super Bomberman R is a very good game, and you should play it.
Why does no one ever listen to me?
Next we got Fast RMX, or Fast Remix. I still don't know if it should be that or RMX. The title screen says RMX, so it's probably RMX. I think it's like a sequel, or it's probably a sequel just because it's made by the same team and has a similar naming scheme, but it's a sequel / just general follow-up to Fast Racing Neo, which came out on the Wii U last year, I think it was? Or was it the year before that? I don't remember. Basically, this game is F-Zero. If you've been waiting for a new F-Zero game, play Fast RMX, because this is F-Zero. And personally, I couldn't really get into it. Like, it's definitely a well-made game, but it's not, to me, a lot of fun. It's very fast, very frantic, and it looks real nice. And the music is especially good. Somebody rip the soundtrack, please. But I don't personally have a lot of fun playing it. Basically, if I were to describe Fast RMX specifically, if you took F-Zero and then combined it with Ikaruga, you get Fast RMX. Because you have this color switching mechanic that is required to get on certain boost pads or on these jumps. And it doesn't feel super necessary. It feels like it was just kind of crowbarred in there. I feel like the game would be about as good, if not maybe slightly improved without it there. But generally, I just couldn't really get into it. However, if you like racing games, especially like chaotic, insane racing games like F-Zero GX, but wish F-Zero GX was maybe a little bit more utterly insane, you'd play Fast RMX. I went through RMX really quickly because I didn't record a lot of footage, because playing it gives me a headache. And I don't usually get headaches from video games, but Fast RMX gives me a headache. However, it's a pretty solid game, and if you like racing games, play it, because it's good. Finally, we've got another retro-styled game, Blaster Master Zero. We've not had a Blaster Master game since like 2010 on the WiiWare, and I don't remember that one being very good. I don't know, I haven't played it. But Blaster Master, the original, is one of my favorite NES games that I've never beaten. I've not finished. I've been playing Blaster Master, the first one, for probably about 2 years, and I still have never finished it. Basically, Blaster Master Zero is like a remake of the original. And if you haven't played the original, just play Zero, because Blaster Master Zero is so good. I find it hard to specifically articulate into words. It's kind of like just Metroid, but with a tank. And if that's not the most awesome thing I've ever described, then I don't know what is. The storyline is kind of ridiculous, though. You're basically finding a frog that hopped down into this underground area, I think it is. It takes place like some hundreds of years in the future after a second ice age. And it's pretty interesting. Like, it's an interesting, if dumb, story. But the real highlight is the gameplay, which is top-notch. The controls can be a little iffy, like specifically climbing up and down walls is a little clunky, and the jump is a little bit floaty, but generally I think the controls are really tight. It's so satisfying to do basically everything in the game. The only, like, every part of it is fun, save for two areas. Areas 5 and 6, I think they are, the water and ice areas. Those are the only parts of the game I did not like, because most of the time in the water area you don't have the item necessary to make traversing in the water easier, so it's just really slow and monotonous and terrible. And then the ice area, it's an ice area, so of course I hate it. But the music is nice. The music is really good all throughout, and I wish I could find it anywhere online, but that's not the point here. The bosses, design-wise, and even fighting them, most of them I think are a little bit too easy. If you have the ninth weapon, I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically the wave beam from Metroid. If you have that, you can tear through most bosses without a second thought. Save for the final boss. The final boss is actually really, really hard compared to all the others. And I didn't get any footage of the final boss, but I do have this screen cap that I took for Twitter. The design of the boss, like his look, is really simple, but I think it still looks really, really cool. I don't know why. And beating that boss was like, that's real video game satisfaction there. I did that fight for maybe 20-30 minutes before I finally beat it, and that was amazing. But if kind of like with Shovel Knight, if you like retro games like me, or you think the original Blaster Master looks good, but you either don't want to emulate it, or you are just too lazy, buy Blaster Master Zero, because it's probably the best way to play the game at this point. It's a little easy at points, I think. It's not really a Nintendo hard game, which is welcome, because Nintendo hard is sometimes a bit much, but it's challenging enough. You won't breeze through it, but you won't really think, save for the final boss, I don't think you'll feel like any part is too difficult or particularly difficult. I'd put it maybe on just a normal level of difficulty. But it's fun, and that's the important part. So there you have it. Those are my rambly thoughts about the Switch's launch titles. Probably be covering more Switch games in the future. More than likely there'll be more older or more obscure games, because the Switch right now has a lot of Neo Geo games on its eShop for some reason. They were on the Japanese eShop for a while, and then they just got vomited onto the US eShop a couple days ago. And most of them are fighting games. Hopefully we'll get some more interesting stuff on there. But we got some good stuff lined up for the system. I'll probably talk more about Switch games in the future. Anyway, I should wrap this video up because it's gone on a lot longer than I thought it would. If you want to suggest another topic for Showcase in the future, you can do so in the comments, and it'll probably get made because I'm willing to take most ideas. Alternatively, you can follow me on Twitter. I tweet about video games that I am playing. I've been tweeting about the Switch games from the Switch because that's social media. But I'll also tweet about other stupid things like shows I'm watching, mainly Kamen Rider. But if you want to check out some of the previous videos that I've made, then on screen right now are 2 of my other videos, and you can click on those and watch them. On screen is also a subscription link, so you can subscribe, and if you want to be notified when I upload a new video, you can click the bell notification below the video. That's all for now, and I will see you guys next time.